And so we have come to the season finale of the Pet Project. Welcome everyone to the final episode of this season, but don't worry, there will be more seasons to come. Where are you trying to go? Where are you trying to go? Huh? Now, with the help of our friends at SPCA, Animals Fiji, PASH Fiji, and the Greater Good Foundation, we learned a number of things this season. First of all, we're going to see a recap of everything we've done this season. And also coming up later is going to be a story about this pretty girl here. Her name is Betty, and you guys would have met her in episode 1. Now, Betty went through an ordeal, hi Onyx, where she actually lost all 6 of her babies. They were 8 weeks old. We lost them in December, and while it was really horrific, we have come to terms with it, and we have learned a valuable lesson from it. The Canine Parvovirus is deadly and fatal, and unfortunately for the both of us, we had to experience that the hard way. So we have that information for you, so none of you ever have to go through something like that again. But coming up, first things first, let's recap everything we've done this season. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 focused on SPCA Fiji. We took a tour of the shelter and clinic and learned about the products and services they offer. We also touched on food tips and grooming tips for our pets.
Feeding your dog biscuits, you can also mix it with a bit of cooked food. Full grooming, normally brush the dog, give it a nice shower, clean its ears.
We also found out what people thought about black cats. That one? Okay, and you? That one, alright.
Black cats sometimes are the last cats to be adopted from a litter, which is really unfortunate.
In episode 3, we met Ginger the piglet, who was adopted by a dog and her pups. Ginger's rescuer, Casimiro Tokenikoro, who is the CEO of Rivers Fiji, actually found him struggling to stay afloat in Navua River.
We have found a couple animal, floating down the rivers. Some are dead, even small piglets like that, dead also, because of the height. Probably this one didn't fall from a far height. Yeah. If it had fallen from a far height, then it would have been dead.
Now, episode 4, we visited PASH, Pacific Animal Shelter and Hospital in Nadi. PASH was definitely a very aesthetically pleasing place, but we really felt their plea of needing funding and equipment to keep the shelter afloat.
We're always interested in volunteers because you can never have enough volunteers. We also are very interested in finding some people who might be willing to give up one Saturday afternoon a month or so to help us with the educational programs that we'll be putting in the beginning of the year.
This was also the first time we heard about the needs of expired drugs for animals and the importance of shelters like them being allowed the title of charity.
The government can assist a wonderful facility like this to offer concessions on either bringing in medical equipment or allowing expired drugs that are on a prescribed list, sanctioned by the US Drug Administration, for instance. Then we can do a lot more to bring a population of animals under control.
We also met with professional dog trainer Renita Reddy, who gave us an insight on dog behavior.
So you establish a relationship of trust. So when you have a pet, you're not going to provoke your pet or do things that annoy them.
Episodes 5, 6, and 7, we were at Animals Fiji, also in Nadi, where we followed the team through their day. We looked at cases like a bone being stuck in a blind puppy's throat, a parrot that was brought in for a checkup that the team found was actually a protected species, and asked the owners to surrender it to them.
Native species, particularly the Tabiuni parrot and the Kandavu parrot, or any kind of native bat species that we have here, are not to be pets. They are for the wild.
We learned some more things about dog behavior, what foods to give to your pets, and in what portion, whether or not human meds are safe for our pets, how a lump was surgically removed from a dog, and about their products and services. Episode 8 focused on an animal abuse case that happened in the Rewa suburb of Suva, where a man had allegedly abused one of his dogs and thrown him off the top ledge of his house. The Pet Project played but a small part in the rescue of the dogs, and the case is currently being put together to go to court. Episode 9, just last week, focused on the animal protection laws of Fiji. Kaya Lal from Lal Patel Bali Lawyers briefed us on the different types of laws in place for animals in Fiji. Now this week, we will be talking about an incredibly dangerous and fatal virus that affects mainly dogs, the dreaded Canine Parvovirus. Don't go anywhere, that's coming up after the break.
It's kind of like the HIV of dogs.
Learn about the deadly canine parvovirus.
Because there is no known cure for it yet.
There may not be a cure, but there are ways to prevent it completely.
I lost all 6 of my beautiful babies.
Don't lose your pets to this fatal virus.
The virus itself and the infection itself isn't what kills them, it's the consequences of that.
I'm going to be very open about this and honest because I don't want this to happen to anyone else. Some of you may remember one of my dogs, Betty, who I introduced in episode 1. Well, we don't know exactly where she came from, but we found her in our yard one day and she just kind of adopted us, and so we decided to keep her. Little did we know that she was actually pregnant, and so she gave birth to 6 beautiful pups who were also part of our marketing campaign for the pet project. And they were just the sweetest little things that I grew very attached to. But it was around the 8th week that this horrific incident happened. I noticed Bear, who was the first to show signs and was usually very bubbly, was extremely lethargic. He was quiet, hiding, vomiting, and having bloody diarrhea. And in fact, one of the other pups was also throwing up, but seemed to brighten up after he threw up. So I didn't think much of it. Initially, I thought it was worms because hookworms does have similar symptoms, but I felt like it could be something more. So of course, I decided to take him to the vet the next morning. So in the morning, I noticed that another one of the pups was showing similar signs as Bear, and I immediately realized that something was very serious and that the other 4 pups could very well be sick as well. But because Bear and Patchy were a little more obvious, I rushed them to SPCA. Unfortunately, the resident vet was not available, so I had no choice but to go to a private vet hospital. After running some tests and fecal analysis, the nurses told us that our babies had contracted the deadly fatal virus called Parvo. Canine Parvovirus is a contagious virus, mainly affecting dogs. It is highly contagious and is spread from dog to dog by direct or indirect contact with their feces. Mortality can reach like 91% in untreated cases. Treatment often involves veterinary hospitalization, so the nurses recommended overnight hospitalization for Bear and Patchy, where they would be put on IV drips. We were also advised to bleach all possible areas that the pups may have thrown up or gone to the toilet, because bleach was the only effective way to kill the virus. And as for my other 4, Gashi, Elsa, Skidder, and Brownie, I called Chanel, the clinic manager who we've met on the show before, to ask if I could bring them in, because no doubt, if one puppy had it, usually the whole litter gets it as well. Thankfully, Chanel was able to see them, and he recommended that we try at-home care, or the outpatients, whereby the pups would have had to have fluids injected into their body every day to keep them hydrated. And the other option we had was to put them down, because the survival rate and the chances of survival especially for such young puppies, was very slim. The next morning, we decided to get Bear and Patchy transferred from the private hospital to SPCA for the same at-home care, because to be really honest, I'll admit the cost of the private clinic was out of my budget, and the accumulation of the overnight stay for the 2 pups was very expensive. Fortunately, I was able to afford that, but I'm sharing this because it got me thinking, what would have happened if I didn't have $400 lying around, to spare? I know a lot of people wouldn't have that kind of money just lying around to help their pups. So, that's why I believe it's important to highlight this story on the show, to bring this common but very deadly virus to light, and also on how to deal with it and where to go if you can't afford treatment. It was really heartbreaking to see them suffer. We had to make the decision to put them down by form of euthanasia. I lost all 6 of my beautiful babies, all 6, to a deadly, horrible virus. This whole thing could have been avoided had I been more educated about parvovirus. I know this virus does affect a lot of dogs in Fiji, and so we wanted to highlight it for everyone and educate the public on what can be done to avoid it completely, because there is no known cure for it yet. It's kind of like the HIV of dogs, really. So Dr. Jo, we sat with her and she actually explained it.
So parvovirus is a virus. It is an organism called a virus, which we are aware of some other viruses around, most recently measles epidemic in humans. So viruses tend to affect certain species. Measles affects humans, parvovirus affects dogs. There's other viruses that affect horses and cattle. Parvovirus is a nasty little virus that lives for a long time in the environment. That's the first thing that everybody needs to always remember about it. It's passed in the stool, in the feces, and even after the feces is long washed away in the rain, the virus is still hanging out there, and sometimes can live for years. So you can move to 3 different houses, and if you happen to get to a house where some dogs had parvovirus, your puppies or dogs potentially can be exposed to it. So that's the first thing. Second thing, and I don't know how many numbers I'm giving here, second thing, it is devastating to puppies, and that's what you saw. They don't have, their immune system is not mature enough to fight that virus. It is one that attacks several parts of the body at the same time, including the bone marrow, where the white blood cells are made that helps protect them from lots of different organisms. The lining of the intestinal tract gets massively attacked. So the puppies start going off their food, they start vomiting, and then they get diarrhea. So it causes, the virus itself and the infection itself isn't what kills them, it's the consequences of that. They get electrolytes imbalanced, they get severe dehydration, and because the intestinal tract is so destroyed, secondary bacteria and all the bacteria that live there go, yahoo, we're in, and off they go, and they invade, and they start to really cause a lot of damage as well. Those are the 3 major things that causes death. We euthanize puppies that have parvovirus infection because commonly we see they reach that point where they can't fight anymore, and that's unfortunately where most of your puppies were at. Watery, bloody diarrhea, they're severely depressed, which is not the same meaning in puppies as in humans. It means that they are really, really sick. That's what that means. But that's the major issue, is the damage that it causes. It's around everywhere here in Fiji, and you can't detect it until your puppy's got it. Prevention comes, we'll start with the mother. So mom may have been vaccinated. She may have been lucky enough to have come through somewhere and got vaccinated. I hope she didn't go from SPCA and have a litter of puppies, because that's not our objective here. She may have had vaccinations, or she may have had parvovirus and survived it. So not all of the dogs with it die. Probably if they did, the virus would die out too. But that's not the intent with those viruses. That's not how they would perpetuate from generation to generation. Some of those dogs actually live, they shed the virus, and then it's there to go on to another dog. If that mother survived that disease, her immune system now is ready to fight that virus if she gets exposed again. If she has puppies, those puppies get antibody, her antibody that would fight the virus. Those puppies get that antibody in her milk, the first milk, colostrum, and now they are protected by her antibody until they're about 3 months old. Her antibody in the puppies only lasts that long, and then it dies a natural death. At that point in time, the puppies need to start making their own antibody to all the diseases and everything they get exposed to. They need to get vaccinated, so I like 8, 12, and 16 weeks of age to get their vaccinations. Around 3 months old, when the mom's antibody pretty much is gone, their immune system has to start getting exposed to some of those things. Otherwise, they are what we call naive. They don't recognize that virus. Now, if they get exposed to the virus, then it's devastating to them. They can't fight it, and most of them will die, get very, very sick. So you vaccinate your puppies. 8, 12, 16 weeks, same vaccination, we call it a booster, it's exactly the same. It usually comes in combination with distemper, parvovirus, infectious hepatitis, sometimes parainfluenza. So that combination gets given to them as puppies. The more dogs we vaccinate, the more protection we're going to get. So you don't have to vaccinate 100% of the dogs. Some of them you just won't ever get hold of. But you can vaccinate a good amount of the population, and now you can really reduce the risk of it. And sometimes when you're seeing YouTube videos and whatnot, it's interesting to me to go and look at the history and see if they've vaccinated their dogs, because if you have vaccinated them properly, they shouldn't get parvovirus. And vaccination is like our immune system, our sentries. So in that puppy's body, their immune system is a sentry. Parvovirus sneaks in. It sneaks in and the sentries can't see. It's like the sentries are seeing in the dark. Inside a body, it's pretty dark. And when you vaccinate, you give the sentries night vision goggles. And now all of a sudden, you can see, and they can see those viruses come in, and then they can go and attack them. You don't know in areas like grass and dirt and sand, unless you have a fenced off area where you know for sure dogs have not been. And I don't mean your own dogs that you know, I mean stray dogs and loose dogs and free dogs that you don't know who they are or where they've come from. You give them as clean a place that you possibly can, and that's really my best advice. We were lucky enough to have a fenced yard most of the time, but sometimes we didn't. So our dogs went out on a leash. We don't turn our dogs out loose or turn them out where they can't go, so we take them on a leash for a walk. Luckily, we've got a fenced yard now, and we don't take them on a leash very often unless we take them for a swim in the sea. But that fenced yard, we know what's been in that yard. It's really difficult when you don't know. So you limit the area, like this area in here with a tile floor, can get cleaned with bleach, Genola, Clorox, whatever term you want to use, whatever brand name. That's one of the few things that will kill parvovirus. So you scrub that area down. If it's dirt or sand, or you think something looks fecal contaminated, or you just want to spray it down with bleach, it's relatively cheap and it's very effective. So pick up any poop that's there, pick up any biological material that's there. Anything that looks biological is vomit and urine and poop and all those nasty things that we don't like to deal with. And then give your yard or that area a Genola spray. Limit your puppies. Play with your puppies in that area. They don't need to wander around town in the nightclubs, right? So they just can stay in that area you know is clean. And then you go through their vaccinations, and then they can start expanding their territory. And that's probably the safest way when you're not sure about, you know, the space that you're in, or your yard's not fenced or whatever. As soon as you have an unfenced area where you can get dogs coming from outside or the street or whatever, anything goes. They leave their ticks, they leave their fleas, they leave their hookworms, they leave their roundworms, they leave their viruses. So anything goes.
Interested in finding out more? Head to our Facebook page to watch the full interview.
I wouldn't want anybody else to go through something like this, and it certainly isn't nice for your fur babies to experience either. So rather than treating it, or worse, losing them completely, please get your pets vaccinated, especially if they are under 16 weeks old. To find out more, you can contact the SPCA, Vet Essentials, Animals Fiji, PASH Fiji for professional vet advice, and you can also head to our social media pages for tips on how you can prevent this horrible virus.
Up next, Canada's newest citizen.
Before we say goodbye, we've got a heartwarming story about a local dog from the Animals Fiji shelter who was adopted by a lovely Canadian couple and has actually migrated to Canada with his new family.
They say one man's trash is another man's treasure. Sky was exactly that for Canadian couple Jessica and Pritesh, who were in Fiji on their honeymoon and found Sky at the Animals Fiji Nadi shelter. This story is brought to you courtesy of Casey and her team from Animals Fiji.
Prior to coming to Fiji, my husband specifically looked into Fiji Animal Rescue and decided that we would take a dog.
The person surrendering called Sai, our receptionist, and we told him to get him, and he was found near Lotoka Hospital, emaciated and very forlorn looking.
Sky was extremely timid and scared, almost to the point that she was growling at the staff. However, we've managed to turn her around and she became the friendliest and most loving dog by the time she was adopted. Pritesh and Jessica emailed Animals Fiji inquiring about our puppies and if we had any available adoptions. We chose to show them pictures of Sky because she was our most loving and deserved to go to the best
And they were
home.
really into her. She was like too lovable for them to quit.
Turn away.
Since we rescued Foxy and the fact that she's given us so much joy, we've gone on to foster 5 other dogs through another foster organization in Canada. And when we decided we wanted to expand our rescue dog family, we knew we wanted somebody from a place that might not otherwise have a good opportunity, and we thought a dog from Fiji would be an excellent contribution to our family.
And have any other animals from Animals Fiji been rescued by people living abroad and migrated with them?
Yes. Yes, a few of our dogs have actually gone overseas to forever homes.
And what some of the countries?
We've got Australia, New Zealand, US,
US,
and now Canada.
What was your immediate reaction or thoughts about Sky? She was lovely. She was so sweet and curious and timid in a really charming way. I think that once she becomes comfortable, she's going to blossom into a silly and funny and sweet girl.
I think maybe it's there's elements of like typical street dog in there that I've seen before in previous dog or current dog, but like the first one, so Foxy behaved like a street dog, and she still does, and I saw that in Sky when we came to visit Sky as well. So.
Rescue dogs are the smartest little puppies that you'll ever find. They train really well, they're the most loving, all they want and crave is human attention.
We all need to care for them like our own. Any animal found, any animal surrendered. So if we are being human, we should love them.
It's definitely a different lifestyle. I think the standard of living, obviously in Fiji, is challenging for a number of humans here, and I think because of that, sometimes animals don't get a great start either. There also seems to be not enough resources to assist the animals, so we've seen a lot of stray dogs on the side of the road, along the highway, and they look like they haven't had a great time with life, or that they really haven't had enough support. So when you think about a dog in Fiji who you're rescuing, you're really giving back to that animal and the whole community so much more than you can even comprehend, because in places like Canada, where we're from, there's already a good infrastructure to support animals who need additional care or who need a second home. And other than that, I would say for anyone who's looking to do it, to not be scared of new challenges and to go into it with an open heart and not expecting a perfect dog. You're going to change a dog's life and they're going to change your life too. But you need to be open and willing to have something a little different, maybe not the exact size or gender or color that you were expecting initially, right? It's only given us returns. We've only felt better and been stronger and felt really, we've come together as a couple over our joy of taking care of rescue dogs.
Sky arrived safely in Canada, and we hear she's gotten used to the snow and even has tiny little dog booties to help keep her warm. She's also become BFFs with Pritesh and Jessica's other rescues.
It is truly sad to say goodbye, but it's only goodbye for now. We'll be back again next season with loads more information and stories for you guys. We hope you've all learned a thing or two from the show, and hopefully we've helped our country become a safer place for our animal friends. Thank you so much for your support this season, and we hope you continue supporting us so we can return for a second season. You can watch all previous episodes on our Facebook and YouTube pages. Give us a like and subscribe while you're there. Till next time, make a difference, be kind to animals. I'm Shania Singh. Thank you for your company.